The highly regarded Panorama interview with Princess Diana that took place on this day in November 1995 was initially celebrated as a pivotal moment in broadcasting history. However, over the years, it has evolved into a distressing symbol of deception and manipulation, tarnishing the BBC's reputation and causing significant harm to Diana and those close to her. Nearly 3 decades have passed since Diana engaged in this televised conversation with Martin Bucer, drawing in a massive audience of around 20 million viewers. Nevertheless, this interview is now remembered not for its significance in royal history, but for the dishonorable deceit that marred its making, ultimately damaging both Diana's reputation and that of the BBC. The interview occurred surreptitiously one Sunday evening in 1995 at Kensington Palace, under the guise of installing a new sound system without the knowledge of the palace staff. Diana had agreed to speak with Bucer to address the ongoing speculation about her troubled marriage to Prince Charles, which had already disintegrated by that point. The interview resulted in explosive revelations. During the conversation, Diana famously remarked that there were 3 of us in the marriage, so it was a bit crowded, alluding to Charles' affair with Camilla Parker Bowles, now his wife. She candidly discussed her initial hopes for life with Charles and her earnest desire for the marriage to succeed, despite the challenges she faced, influenced by her parents' divorce. Diana bravely disclosed her silent struggles with bulimia, postpartum depression, and self-harm, shedding light on her inner turmoil and the misunderstandings that led others to label her as unstable. She expressed that these issues were symptomatic of the turmoil within her marriage, a cry for help that went unrecognized. Moreover, she admitted to her own extramarital affairs and questioned Charles's suitability for the throne, stating uncertainties about his ability to adapt to the responsibilities it entailed. Diana also revealed her doubts about ever becoming queen, expressing her desire to be the queen of people's hearts, but acknowledging her unconventional approach, which often landed her in trouble. Diana felt isolated within the royal household, perceiving herself as a perceived threat. Yet she drew strength from the historical struggles of other strong women who walked similar paths. The Panorama interview marked the final blow to Charles and Diana's marriage, leading to divorce proceedings initiated less than a month later, following the Queen's Counsel. This interview followed Jonathan Dimbleby's interview, where Charles admitted his infidelity, and Diana, in turn, faced tough questions about her experiences as a royal. The controversial nature of the interview led to only a small team at the BBC being aware of its existence. There was a deliberate decision not to inform BBC chairman Marmaduke Hussey, given his wife's proximity to the Queen, which ensured the interview remained concealed from top officials. Debbie Frank, a close friend of Diana, disclosed that the princess expressed regret in a frantic call just 24 hours before the interview aired. Despite realizing it was too late to halt its broadcast, Diana fretted over potential public backlash and questioned whether she had said the right things. While the Panorama interview granted Diana public support as she ventured into independent life, it also underscored the tragedies that necessitated its occurrence. 25 years later, it was revealed that Martin Bucer had secured the interview by fabricating documents, a fact unearthed in the official Dyson report of 2021. The report confirmed Bucer's serious breach of BBC rules, utilizing forged bank statements to gain access to Diana. Diana's brother, Earl Spencer, believed that Bucer exercised coercive control over his vulnerable sister, trapping her in a web of deceit and manipulation. Ultimately, while the Panorama interview initially appeared as a significant event, it became emblematic of deception, manipulation, and the exploitation of Diana's vulnerabilities, casting a long shadow over both her legacy and the BBC's integrity. The recent revelations about how BBC journalist Martin Bucer secured his infamous 1995 interview with Princess Diana have caused an enormous scandal that has rocked the broadcaster. An independent investigation carried out by former Judge Lord Dyson found that Bucer acted deceitfully and unethically to convince Diana to sit down with him for the Panorama interview, which was watched by over 20 million people at the time. Specifically, Bucer showed Diana's brother, Earl Spencer, forged bank statements that falsely implied people close to Diana were being paid to spy on her. This convinced Earl Spencer to introduce Bashir to his sister. Bashir also allegedly told Diana outrageous lies, like that the security services were plotting to kill her. The Dyson Report slammed the BBC and its leadership at the time, including then-Director General Tony Hall, for covering up Bashir's deceitful tactics, even after they learned he had falsified documents. When Bashir admitted to doing this, Hall inexplicably accepted his excuses and considered him an honest and honorable man. The revelations have been met with intense criticism and outrage, especially by Diana's sons William and Harry. They argue that by using unscrupulous methods to persuade Diana to do the interview, Bashir and the BBC took advantage of her vulnerable mental state at the time. This false narrative set by the interview then shaped Diana's life going forward. William said the interview holds no legitimacy and should never air again. Harry said the culture of exploitation and unethical practices at the BBC ultimately contributed to Diana's death 2 years later. The princes also criticized Netflix for using clips of the interview in the recent Harry and Meghan documentary series, even though William had explicitly asked that it never be aired again. Prince Charles was also said to be furious that his son Harry essentially ignored William's plea. This was seen as widening the gulf between the once close brothers. Both William and Harry received apologies from the BBC over the Bashir situation and the corporation's cover-up. But this has done little to mitigate the damage to the BBC's reputation. The Bashir/Diana scandal is one of the worst credibility crises in the broadcaster's history. The whole situation began back in 1995 when Bashir met Earl Spencer and showed him the forged bank statements, which had been created by a freelance graphic designer. Bashir alleged they showed payments from tabloids and others to surveil Diana. Intrigued, Earl Spencer introduced Bashir to Diana. The blockbuster interview aired later that November. But soon after, the designer who made the fake documents began questioning if they had been used improperly. When confronted, Bashir denied showing them to anyone. But the next year he admitted to BBC executives that he had in fact shown them to Earl Spencer to secure the interview. Astoundingly, BBC chief Tony Hall accepted Bashir's admission of lying and considered the matter closed. Even when the press got wind of the scam, the BBC denied the documents played any role in getting Diana to talk. Bashir left the BBC but shockingly was rehired in 2016 as religious affairs editor. The whole affair remained largely forgotten until 2020 when renewed attention prompted an independent inquiry. This culminated in Lord Dyson's report, which laid bare Bashir's deceit and the BBC's cover-up. The revelations have led to public apologies, settlements with Bashir's victims, and returning of awards. But beyond the financial consequences, the BBC's reputation has been badly tarnished. Many feel it betrayed the public trust and its own journalistic ethics. Its integrity may never fully recover from the shameful Bashir/Diana scandal. In the aftermath, lingering questions remain. Would Diana have agreed to do the interview anyway, even without Bashir's lies and manipulation? What were BBC executives thinking when they whitewashed his unethical practices? And how might things have played out differently if the truth had come out back in 1995 rather 1996? Sadly, the princess passed away just 2 years after the interview aired. She never knew how Bashir duped her into taking part in the historic, but now tainted interview. Perhaps if things had happened differently, Diana would still be alive today. That is something we can only speculate about, but highlights the gravity and tragedy of Bashir's deceitful actions. Dear friend, if you like everything new about the royal family and don't want to miss all the novelties, subscribe to our channel and like it. By doing so, you take part in our development. We work for you.